Welcome to another Whole Body Therapy Studio stretch session. For today's stretch, you will need a little bit of equipment. So you'll be needing a stability ball and something to elevate your toes. I've chosen a couple of weight plates. You could use a thick book or a plank of wood. It's to stretch your calves. So depending on how tight your calves are, you'll either want something that's low profile or something a little bit thicker. You'll need a mat for comfort. And when we're stretching our quads and our hip flexors, you might want a little pillow underneath your kneecap if your knees are tender and sore when you put weight on them. You could also roll a mat a couple of times like so and just put your knee on the mat. So today, let's begin our stretch session by using our stability ball. If you don't have a stability ball, you could also use a footstool, an ottoman. You could use the corner of the end of your sofa cushion, for example, or even a chair. So you just need something that will fit this much of your arm from your elbow to your fingertips. So we're going to come back and find a position on the ball that is a 90-degree bend. So our elbow is in line with our shoulder and then right angles on the ball. So we want the ball not really close to the body so that it's trapping the front of your shoulder, but you want it far enough away that your shoulder has free movement up and down. We're going to stretch the pec muscle. So once you've got your setup, there's a little bit of finagling to get the setup. We're going to lower the body down by bending the elbow, and then we're going to look away from the ball. And just hold. Breathing in. Pushing the front of the shoulder down to the ground for 4 more seconds. And then easing out of that one. And let's do the other side. Taking your time to set it up. And by the way, if any of these stretches are just so tight for you that it's really uncomfortable, then by all means come out of the stretch and then for 2 seconds and come back into the stretch again. Here we go. We exhale, we bend the elbow and look away. Pushing the front of the shoulder into the floor. Last 4 seconds. Good, and gently coming out. If any of these stretches feel amazing and you want to hold them for longer, you go right ahead. So it helps if you have something just to sneak your ball into for the stretches where we're not using the ball. I use a riser, but you could trap it or set it, wedge it in the corner of something. And then moving on to a back and hips stretch. So we're going to do a reclining twist stretch. So you'll need some room to the right and the left. You're going to want to cross one knee over the other knee. And depending on how tight your hips and low back are, you may want to ease into this twist. So I take my opposite arm and pull that top leg gently over to the side. Good. Just going to the edge of the discomfort. And while I'm holding that thigh, I'm going to take the opposite arm. I'm going to turn the palm to face the ceiling and sink the back of the shoulder into the ground. If the back of the shoulder is suspended in the air, then use the other shoulder, lift up, and use this shoulder to help push the other one down. So once you've found that maximum stretch between that twist and the knee all the way up to that opposite shoulder, you're going to allow your head to fall away from the bent knees. So just don't force it, but allow it to just flop over to the side. And we want to breathe into the low back. Releasing those tight muscles in the low back. And then gently release, bringing one knee up at a time, and we'll do the other side now. Changing legs, grabbing the knee, pulling it over, and then slowly allowing the head to fall over, turning the opposite palm to face the ceiling, and pushing the back of the shoulder down. So we're trying to hold these stretches for about 24 seconds each time. Breathing into the low back. Last 4 seconds. And slowly coming out, one knee at a time. Good. And the next stretch will be for the outer hips again. So we're getting lots of outer hip stretches today. This is either half cow pose or full cow pose. So I'm going to face you so you can see what I'm doing a little better. So if your hips are really tight, you're going to do the half cow pose. So we want the toe pointing straight up to the ceiling. We're trying to keep that knee nice and straight. So we're flexing the foot. And then we try to bring the knee over on top of the knee. Now, if you're really tight in here, you're not going to get all the way down and all the way over. You might look something like this. Nothing wrong with that. So just trying to pull that thigh across as far as possible. And then we're going to open up the chest and we're going to reach back and just lift the chest up for a nice counter stretch just for a moment from the low back stretch that we just did. Good. Now, if you're ready for full cow, so stay in half cow if that's for you. If your hips are nice and loose, the outer hips, then we're going to bend the bottom knee and try to line up knee on top of knee. And find your sitting bones if you're in this position. So get the meat of your bottom out from underneath you. Good. And here we go. So we want to, regardless of whether in half cow or full cow, we're now going to take a forward fold to deepen the stretch for the hips and now the hamstrings and low back. So we're going to stretch the arms out and push the chest as far forward as possible. So we don't want to round the back a lot and droop, but we want to push the heart forward across the room. And just relax the head and neck wherever you get stuck. Try not to hold your head up. Once you know what you're doing, and you don't need to see what I'm doing, just breathe and stay. So we'll start counting again the stretch, holding for about 24 seconds. Breathing into those hips and that hamstring and the low back. Four, 3, 2, 1. And just slowly coming up. Good. So next, moving on to our hamstrings, we're going to lay supine facing the ceiling, and we're going to really work those hamstrings. So if your hamstrings are loose, you can keep the opposite leg, the one we're not stretching, nice and straight, foot flexed. If your hamstrings are super tight, you're going to want to bend the other knee with the foot on the ground. We're going to lift and do 2 stretches for the hamstrings. So we're going to pull in, flexing the foot, straightening the knee, breathing. And if you wish, you can circle the ankle a few times, circle the other way, pulling in again, flexing the foot. Good. And then releasing. And now we have to straighten the leg. We don't have a choice because we're going to bring that leg across the body and pull it in. Flex the foot, straighten the knee. This should be a little tighter of a stretch for you. You want to relax the shoulders and the neck. Breathing. Exhaling, pulling it in closer. And releasing. Good. Let's change legs. So again, if you're tight, bend that opposite knee. We're going to lift the leg. If you're really tight, you won't get to your calves with your hands. You'll need to stretch just by holding the back of the thigh, and that's fine. Breath in. Relaxing as you breathe out. Exhale, bring it closer, the thigh closer. Good. And releasing, sliding the other leg straight. And now we're going to pull across the body. And once again, pull the thigh in, flexing the foot, trying to bend, keep that knee straight. Relax the shoulders. Last 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Wonderful. Okay, next stretch. We're going to get the inner thighs, the whole side of the body, and the low back, and the hamstrings. So we're really going to cover a lot of ground here with this next stretch. So if it's uncomfortable for you to do wide leg stretch, you have lots of options. You can sit with the knees falling open and the outer edges of the feet together. You can have one foot tucked in, one leg extended, and you can always bend this knee if you're tight in the back of your legs. So whatever position, you could be both feet open wide but knees bent. So just choose your position, okay? Get the meat of your bottom out from underneath you. Find your position where you feel a stretch in the inner thigh, trying to flex the feet if your feet are extended wide and long, and trying to keep the knees straight. So we're going to place an elbow on the inside of this right leg, and then we're going to lift the left arm up straight, as tall and straight as we can, before we start to pull over to the side. So we don't want a bent elbow and we don't want a curve here. We want to lift tall and pull over. And you'll notice that I'm looking up and my rib cage is trying to rotate up to the ceiling. So I'm breathing into the side of my body where the stretch is happening. Just focusing on breathing and releasing the tight muscle, letting it soften. and letting go slowly. Let's change sides. So again, you may choose a foot tucked in or both feet together, knees falling open. So just find your comfort zone. I'll show you this way this time. So I'm going to pretend that my hamstring is tight, tucking in my foot, laying down my elbow. And by the way, if you can't get your elbow to the ground, you just move your elbow to your thigh. No problem. So whatever is comfy for you. And then we're going to stretch before we tilt and lean with a long arm. And then we rotate the rib cage to the ceiling and look up. Breathing into that tight side. Relaxing into the stretch. Not fighting it. Good. And just softening and slowly coming up. So then we're going to find our sitting bones once again, find a comfortable seated position, however that looks for you. Legs could be outstretched or bent. And we're going to crawl away the fingertips. So the right fingertips will just crawl away from the body to pull down the shoulder so that we don't, because when we stretch the neck, which is next, we tend to want to tighten up everything. So just crawl the fingertips away. And we're going to grab the back corner of the head. We're going to pull down the nose to the chest and then pull over into the armpit and hold. Breathing through the nose deeply, not the mouth. Good. And then grabbing the middle of the same side and pulling over toward the shoulder. Try not to pick up the shoulder to help, but let the shoulders drop away. Good. And then grabbing the front corner, the temple, and pulling over, and at the same time lifting the corner of the chin on that side up to the ceiling. So now you should feel it all through the front of the shoulder and the front of the neck. Good. And softly letting go. Do a few side to sides with the head and a little bit forward and back. Loosen it up. And let's try the other side. Crawl those left fingertips away. Grab the back corner of the head. And we pull the nose down. Sorry, the microphone is in the way. And then pull over to the side. So we're trying to smell the armpit. Dropping those shoulders. Breathing deeply through the nose. Good. And release. Grabbing the side of the head. Pulling straight down, ear to shoulder. Dropping those shoulders. Good. Slowly releasing, grabbing the temple, trying to lift that corner of the chin up to the ceiling and pull the temple down. Breathing nice and slow, filling up with air. So then moving next into a quadricep, tricep stretch. There's a few different ways you can do this one at your home. So I'm going to show you with a ball today, but you could certainly elevate. What works nicely is to elevate your foot instead of on the ball on an ottoman, a footstool, or a low couch. So if the couch is nice and low, that's easier to balance. But in case you don't have that handy, I'm going to show you how to do it with a ball. If your knees get sore when you've got lots of pressure on them, this is where I was explaining you might want to double up your mat and put it underneath, or grab a pillow or a towel and roll it and put it underneath the knee that's going to be supporting the weight. So if you're using a ball, you want to get your foot up on the ball. Of course, the size of the ball will change the stretch, right? So now, if you're flexible, you won't have any trouble bringing this other leg forward, but otherwise you might need to just kind of walk it forward and even maybe have a chair handy just to hang on to help you get up. So once I have my foot wiggled in front of me, if I want the stretch to be very gentle, I keep the foot nice and close to my body. But if I'm flexible in this quadricep hip flexor, I can push my foot forward further. And then I come up onto my leg. I could be holding onto a chair for balance and support. And here is where we want to push the hips and the chest across the room. So if we cave in or we let the pelvis go back, we're really missing the stretch. So if it's too much, the stretch, bring the foot a little closer and lower your foot on the ball. Don't have it so high up. So to stretch the tricep, we're just going to bring the hand down the back as far as we can. And you could even give it a little assist while you're here. Breathing in and out. Good. Keep opening the front side of the body. And then slowly letting go. And we want to wiggle that front foot back. And then bring the back foot down. So again, this is going to be much, much easier done on a chair or stool, footstool or couch. And of course, with something padding that knee. So we get the other foot up, taking your time, wiggling the front foot out front. Coming up, seeing how tight you are. Do you need to adjust that foot and bring it in, or lower this back foot down? Push the ball away a bit. We open the heart, push the heart across the room. Hips in the front, push across the room. And if you're balanced, you might want to try that tricep stretch. Reaching down, pulling the elbow back, or even giving it an assist. Pulling the belly in, squeezing those glutes, breathing into it. Good, and slowly letting go, coming down or grabbing that chair, wiggling the foot back. Foot come down and just placing the ball off to the side. So then let's do our calf stretch. So we're going to grab, this is where I said you might need a book or a board. So just grabbing whatever it is. I happen to be using weight plates. If your calves are really tight, you're not going to want something that deep. You're going to want something with a much lower profile. So the toes go up on your board or book or plates. Heel presses to the ground, and the other foot steps forward. So it's going to feel kind of awkward. It's like you're kicking your hips out the back. You're doing a little crouch. So you want to try to straighten this knee as much as possible, bending the other one. Good. The further forward you step, of course, the deeper the stretch. Good. And then let's do the other side. Step forward. Wonderful. Breathing in. Adjusting that stretch as you go. As you feel the muscles soften, maybe you deepen the stretch and step forward a little more. Good. And then stretching the deeper part of that calf muscle towards the Achilles tendon, the soleus. So we just step forward and then we bend both knees a little bit and crouch down. So now we're hitting the lower portion of the calf. Just relaxing that muscle, trying not to fight it. Good. Slowly coming up, changing sides. Breathing and releasing those tight muscles. Deepening the stretch when you feel it release. And then slowly coming up. Thank you very much for joining me with this stretch today. I think it's been a really effective one. And please tell everybody you know, share this channel, share the free workouts with everyone, and give it a thumbs up if you will. And please subscribe so that we can continue to provide you with free workouts, free stretches, and free meditations. Have a great day.